Hello, how are we doing today on this beautiful Sunday? My name is Judith Mendoza, and I am a behavior consultant and educator. And today I would like to speak in regards to the topic of communication and the importance of I. And so today I wanted to explain in regards to how relationships develop or should develop, right? And so in order for us to have a relationship with someone else, we have to form an identity in order to form a relationship with someone else. Now, in regards to humans, right? Because this is something that uh, it seems to happen in the world of animals, but humans are humans, not animals. So, what has been found out, right? And this is from scientific information. What has been found out in regards to humans is that we humans are social creatures. So we have the need for the company of others. And of course, this can be found in the relationships that we form with others. So we do see animals, right? We see them in groups, in herds. And sometimes, with the information that we have in regards to humans, of course, animals cannot reason. Animals can go explaining their feelings and their emotions. Animals are animals. Humans are not animals, right? So it is important that we have this understanding because it can be that we may feel that as animals, we can just behave as them in our actions. But of course, we humans have the capacity of reasoning. And then also, we have the capacity of putting into practice actions that will lead uh, or that will have beneficial results for self, but also for others. So, my name is Judith Mendoza. As I mentioned, I'm a behavior consultant and educator, and I am bringing autism awareness in these presentations, and not just bringing autism awareness, but also explaining what autism is and what autism is not, and also how to deal with situations. Now, when it comes to having relationships with others, our actions, the actions that I do with my body, will say about me to others. It is not communication as the communication that one can only bring out directly and that is considered true communication, right? Because we do know that there exists the wording body language, and we call it language because it can transmit messages, thoughts to others, right? Or we can create this in others because it isn't like we're not communicating from mind to mind as if we're using telepathy or telepathy. I don't know how it's pronounced. But it is not that way. We can send signals that we have learned to know in our brain that they mean something. And basically, we have learned these from our associations, especially those of family members, right? So we have learned certain gestures. But for those who have autism, they may not know what certain gestures mean or don't mean. Basically, the one who has autism will copy what others are doing, but really doing the person's identity, copying the person's identity along with the personality of the identity, along with the expressions of the identity, the gestures of the identity, and even the words that the identity use. Basically, this is because of an identity disorder. That is what it is if you're using someone else's identity. Not for the means of, for example, those who commit fraud and they are pretending to be some other human because their intention is to steal, to get away with a crime. I am not talking about that. I am talking about those who have autism and who mentally put themselves the thinking that they are someone else at the moment that they are speaking, or at the moment that they're doing actions, or that they're doing actions because these actions mean that they're going to communicate as if it was words. And it may be that literally they want to do body language, but as I mentioned, we call it language, but it's really not a language unless it is a sign language. Sign language, it is language that we use with our hands to form words, right? So we cannot say the words with our mouth, but we can spell them out with our hands and the expressions of our face, because sign language includes that one does the expression of the word so that it can be better understood. So for those who have autism, in understanding body language, the actions that one may do with one's body is not a language. We just call it that way because it is a type of way that one can communicate. But of course, the wrong thing can be communicated because it is not language that is being expressed out with the mouth. One can come to wrong conclusions by reading someone's body language or body motion or body gesturing. So basically, and then as I mentioned, it seems that we can transmit a thought, and most likely we can, depending on how close we are with the person, right? You can have maybe a couple, right? A couple, a woman and a man who have been married for some years, and one can be on one extremity of the place, of the room, and the other can be on the other extremity, and they can look at one another and they can transmit a message, but this is based on something that is been done before between them. And so it is kind of like between them two, uh, they know the signal, they know what it means for them. It doesn't mean that it will mean the same thing for another person. It just takes the two-person to know what it means between the two of them, because they have a relationship, because they have gotten to know each other for a long time. So they have learned to communicate with different signals, but it's not communication as when one speaks words out or sign them out. And I thank you for joining me today. And so today I wanted to talk about, I mentioned about saying the sentence, how are you doing? The words, the question. It is a very important question. It is an opening to a conversation, but it is a very important question. And so, of course, as I mentioned, um, we are naturally social creatures. We want to, we need to be with others. And this is something that we have been experiencing from our birth. When we were born, we came into a group of people that were already waiting for us. It was our first friends. And even though we may think of our parents just as our parents and someone that give us things or that are supposed to give us things, in reality, they are our first friends that we encounter. And this group is called a family where we come into, that we are immediately loved and welcome. And well, at least that's the way it should be. And there's balance, of course, when there's mom and there's dad. And so in studies, they have found that the mother has a greater responsibility, or not greater responsibility, but the greater opportunity, that's better, the greater opportunity to be with the child. Because of course, most likely, dad have to work and mom will spend most of the time with the child, taking care for the needs of the child. But that doesn't mean that the father is not a friend, of course. And of course, both parents should try equally to be interested in their child's life, to be a friend. And so that is the basis for the relationships that we are going to form later on in the future. And also, it will be based on the type of person that I have become. What are my values? What is my personality? What is my identity? This is important to ask, and important for us to go through as family, especially if there are those who have autism in the family. And it could be also that the family is composed of a husband and a wife, and one of them have autism. Most likely, the one who has autism is not going to be uh, going to be using the pattern of their parents only, but also of the mate, the husband or the wife. So basically, in all instances, it is very important that we know what example we are putting for others. Now, this is one of the many reasons why I bring out the issue of autism awareness, of course. And as you know, I didn't know what autism was some years ago, and here I am now explaining about the situation now that I know more about it. Now, when it comes to uh, relationships with others, it is important that when we ask questions such as how you're doing, how are you doing, that is a question that is actually asking the other human to open up about self, to open up about what the person is thinking, what the person is feeling. It is part of having a relationship with another human. And as I mentioned, this is a need. We all need this. But also, we can become um, in the habit, we can be in the habit of just saying hello, and then also using the expression of how are you doing as something that you just say because uh, the norms of society requires it. Maybe you can see it away, but in reality, it is a question that it is an important question. It is showing personal interest for the other human. And when you're asking that question, it's actually saying, I want to know more about you and your day and how you're doing and how you're feeling. And I am listening. I have the time to listen to you. That's why I asked that question. And so it is a simple question, but it is an important question. Now, for those who have autism, this is something that must be taught. Those who have autism will have to form an identity of self, have consciousness of self, being present in self as self, of course, referring to one's identity, one's legal identity, which is basically the name, my name. And so the name of the individual. Each human is responsible for uh, what we're saying, what we say, what I say. The connection to another human is with what I say with my mouth. Now, if I am thinking that through me, that I'm going to pretend that I am someone else, I'm going to use someone else's identity, I am going to use someone else's sentences and words, and I am going to behave as that person. I'm going to speak as that person speaks, even the gestures and everything. So my mind goes blank in regards to myself, and I start speaking as if I am someone else, using their identity, and so what happens with the relationship that I am going to make based on someone else's identity? Well, the first things is that I am imagining that. I am imagining to be someone else. Then the identity, then whoever I make the relationship with, is not going to be with myself as self, but it's going to be with, in my mind, this is happening to someone else that I am imagining to be, but it's not myself, it's someone else. And those who have autism basically do this. And what happens is that because they need the pattern to be constantly looking at so that they can function under that pattern, everything can go well using that pattern. If I use that pattern, right? If I went and did that and I use that pattern, but what happens when the pattern that I use is not there anymore? What's going to happen to the relationship that my body, my physical body, formed with this person, but I was pretending to be someone else in my mind? So, whatever happened with that identity in my mind, it's going to be as if it's just something that did not happen if that identity goes away. So of course, those who have autism are using their actions, and that is the way that we can tell, because someone who has autism can say, well, that's not true what Judith is saying about those who have autism. But is that really you saying that, or is that the identity pattern that you're using that is saying that you don't have autism, or is saying that you are a high level person with autism? But oneself knows, right? Oneself can know if I'm using my own identity and don't have autism, which there's nothing wrong if you have autism. It's another of the many diagnoses that we have in the mental health system, and it can be observed. So whatever it is that we may be saying to self in order to not believe, I believe Judith, or not believe that this is true, or not come to reality because it is too inconvenient. What I'm saying is proven to happen to those who have autism. It can be observed. Autism in humans can be observed in their actions. So you may be saying, well, Judith is saying all these things and they are not true. Those who have autism don't do this, don't do that. The evidence exists. And basically, it's not just I who is saying this. When you start looking, when you start searching and doing research, you'll find that this is the situation for those who have autism. And when I came into the knowledge that there have been uh, different uh, situations or different levels of this uh, what we call autism now used to be called Asperger's syndrome. What I thought was, well, this thing with autism must be different because it is listed in different as in different categories, right? Because there was Asperger's, and then there was autism, and then there was something else back then. But the same things are shown by all those who have autism, with the exception that they are having different identity patterns that they follow. So it is important to know and to remember that those who have autism do not form their own identity automatically, and they will need guidance as to forming their own identity. In children, you need to correct them, you need to guide them. You need to guide them as to the usage of their name and why is it important, how is it connected to one's identity, and how with one's identity one can make a relationship with others. And then also how our actions, the actions that I do with my body, is talking about me, about myself. What I say with my mouth, even if I am thinking in my mind, I am thinking I am someone else, but I'm using my mouth to speak, even if I am imagining in my mind that I am someone else, that's not what's going on. Because everyone has a brain, everyone has a body, everyone has a mouth, everyone has a pair of eyes, a nose, ears, right? Basically, normally that's what we see in all humans. And so each human with its own body, me with my own body, I have my own mouth. And so my mouth is attached to my face and my body. And so what I speak is either what I think, what I believe, what I know. So it is expressed in the way that I am talking, but it is what I believe. And so therefore, I can say, in my opinion. And so forming, right, the identity is the first thing before developing the relationship. Of course, uh, those with autism also have to have a understanding when it comes to being part of a family, part of the group that we come into, which basically, besides being our family, they are our friends. They are there waiting for us to be uh, born from our mother's womb. And so we immediately are encountered by all these humans that most likely we don't see as friends, as I say, but of course, that is the type of relationship that happens within our families. And then, of course, we go on in life, we become adults, and then we start having relationships with others, right? We are having friendships. And so it is important that these friendships are from self, from the point of view of self. And later on, I will be showing a little bit more in regards to relationships. But today, I just wanted to speak in regards to the importance of using and developing a relationship, uh, not a relationship, an identity of self, so that we can form a relationship with another human, which is formed by what one says to the other person. And basically, we use questions. We use questions to uh, interact with the person. And so we have to be ready to be to care, to become interested in the other human. It's not only that you're showing empathy, but that you're interested. Because, for example, right, we have the devices that we use. And so if I ask the question to someone and I say, well, how are you doing? Then, of course, I am saying, I want you to tell me. It's a question. I want to know. Basically, that's what you're saying. You want to know. You have the time to listen. And basically, that's how relationships are formed. And they're based on that, on one person caring for the other and the other person caring for, each other. And so, but what if I ask the question and I say, well, how are you doing? But immediately I go away with my own world that exists in social media. Uh, then, of course, most likely the relationship that we want will not develop because we're not showing interest in the other person. And so, also, in regards to um, the identity, right, that someone can form different imaginations of imagine that they have different identities, and with these identities they can communicate with others. Well, in social media, it is so easy to make this profile and that profile and that profile and that profile for the many different identities that one can imagine to have, right? And we know that those who have autism, they literally translate the language to literally something that literally happens. And so they can not respond to their own name, not see the importance of responding to their own name, but instead using different names. And maybe this is confused with using a nickname. But in reality, a nickname is something like, for example, my name is Judith, but my nickname or my shortened name is Judy. So if someone says to me, uh, Judy, I don't imagine myself to be someone else. Or I don't say to myself, well, as Judy, I am someone different than Judith. No, because I know that there is a reason for the name. It's just a shortened name that it doesn't go far away from what my name is. It's basically a shortened version of it. But for those who have autism, they can confuse this maybe with confuse what a nickname is and use different names with different identities for their names. And of course, this will be uh, the disorder of dissociative identity. And we know that social media, of course, makes this something that is easy to do, because someone can just go and then make their profile, and then a profile under this name, and then behave in this certain way, and then a profile under this other name, and behave under that name, and behave under this other name as this other person, and then they can be all these identities, um, and just be doing that and just be involved in these identities, and really maybe also making a lot of friends, right? Or people that they know in social media, because basically for someone to be a friend, you really have to know the person and be committed to that person. That's a friend. So someone that you know, uh, an associate, a partner in business, or um, someone that you don't speak to much often, or maybe don't live in the same city, in the same state, in the same country, right? So yes, friendships can develop from this, of course, but I am speaking about developing these relationships, right? So the basis will be having my own identity, because as myself, as Judith, right? I'm doing actions, or I should do actions that will develop this relationship and then also maintain it. But then if I develop this as Judith, right, from me, from I having knowledge of that me is the one who is in this relationship with the other person, then I will be making association from that person to me. And the way that I will do this is by speaking about that person. Each human makes the association from another person to self by me speaking about that person. I can know someone and I can be very close to this person, but if I don't make mention of that person, you will never know that that person is associated to me unless I make the association. And I basically will do this by what I write, which is communication, or what I talk when I speak about this person. And basically, uh, the connection will start with that person's name. And I have the example, right? Uh, I have been telling you in regards to me getting to know Frank, who I didn't know he had autism, and the reason why this autism awareness began is because I got to know Frank and met his family, and know that his family didn't know that he had autism. Well, at least they didn't speak to me about it. And I didn't know that he had autism. I didn't know what autism was, right? So the way that you know about this situation that I had with someone who has autism is because I use my mouth, right? This is my communication tool, my mouth. And whatever is in my brain, I go ahead and I speak it out from my mouth out to whoever is listening, or to my friends or family members. So it is through my mouth, my voice, that I make the association. And then I say also, I have told you that Frank has an account on Twitter under at 10-second man. Oh, no, that's not it. It's at 10-second songs. So he's Frank, and basically I speak about him, and I give attention to that profile because I know him, and I wanted to make association so that you can also know him. But if I did not speak of him and his name and what he's doing and what autism is and why I am doing this, then you will not know. If I don't make association, if I don't say it with my mouth, I know Frank, I know his name, I know his family, um, I know him for a long time. All of those things are me saying with my mouth that I am making an association from myself to him and making him part of um, what I know. But I make the association with my mouth about him. We, each human, make the association of whatever human I am speaking about. I am associating that human to myself. I have something to say about that person, and I am associating that person in whatever level, because there are different levels of association that we can have with a human or with different humans. But in whatever level, I will be the one saying that, explaining that by what I say. For example, when I say about well, I know Frank for a long time. I know his family for a long time. I did not know that he had autism, but so far since 2015, I have bring uh, learning about what autism is, doing research in the matter, doing study, and bringing autism awareness. So just with that, what I just said, I have made association from him, his family, to myself. And so whatever details, other details, whatever I am saying, I am making association because I am mentioning his name. So the association have to be right. So we're legal entities. So each one of us have a legal identity. So by me mentioning by his legal name, I am making association of who he is as a person, as a human, as a legal entity to myself, and uh, what the relationship between us is. If I do not speak to you about him, then I am not making any association of him to myself. And basically, as I mentioned, you can have someone next to you whom you have a relationship with, but if you don't open your mouth and say, this is so and so to me, or this is my friend, this is my cousin, this is my aunt, this is my nephew, this is my uncle, this is my brother, this is my mother, this is my father, this is my wife, or this is my husband, or this is my whatever. It is the person, it is whomever is speaking, that of the person to self, in whatever different level of relationship that exists. So for those who have autism, this is difficult to do, even if it comes with to do with the family. It is not that they do not understand that they are part of a family, but at the moment that they start speaking, right, they start associating themselves with the identities of each person instead of developing their own identity. And so if I use someone else's identity to create or develop a relationship, then what happens if this identity pattern goes away? something happens. And so this relationship, how is it going to exist if something happens to this identity that I am thinking, imagining of being, in order for me to develop a relationship? Then what will happen is that I will not know how to behave towards this person that I developed the relationship with using someone else's identity. Imagining, because that happens only in the mind, that the person imagines this. Because in reality, even though I am imagining to be someone else, I'm not. I exist as my own self person, not sub exist under someone else's identity. And so, of course, for those who have autism, then it is important that they develop their identity, which they don't automatically develop own identity. And then also that from their own identity, that they develop these relationships with others, making appropriate associations from them to the person, to self, or from self to the other person. And then learning how to use words, because they don't. If the person is using, the person who has autism is using an identity pattern, then that person is unable to use words if he or she is not pretending to be this other human. And it will show, it will be demonstrated, it will be observed in the actions of the person. And it will be as a quilted conversation, because the person is basically putting little bits of conversations together to make a conversation happen. And so that is what will be nice. The quilted conversation from that, basically it looks like it doesn't make sense, or the person will be looking as if she or he is doing actions that really don't go together with the situation. And also something else that they use, those who have autism, using from the things around them, words they put together based on the actions around the surrounding, or even from the names of people. Also they can try to make words with the names of persons. And so if it is a child, it is easier to guide, but if it's an adult, the person has to guide self in regards to how to make use of these words, to put them together, to have their thoughts expressed out. And as I mentioned is today, is when we are developing relationships with others, we want to show genuine interest in the person. One question that we use often is, how are you doing? Hello, how are you doing? And basically we want to find out about the other person. This is something that is a very common question. It's basically not important, you can see, but it's very important. It's showing that one is interested in another human.